Welcome to the space between two lines. I'm Alex Saunders, and this is a space for real, honest conversations about fertility, pregnancy loss, and the journey to parenthood. Here, we hear the stories of people navigating the highs, the lows, and everything in between. A place to feel seen, understood, and less alone. Because every story matters, and so does yours.
For today's episode, I'm going to be sitting down with Rosie, and we're just going to be having a chat about how the rest of my pregnancy's gone, my upcoming birth, and touching on what my birth was like with Ollie, and I guess how I've navigated pregnancy after the journey that we had. So thank you for being here, Rosie, and helping me with this one.
I was trying to remember when we did the first episodes.
The first episodes, I was 16 weeks pregnant. So January. It's like, I remember I just got back from being in Bali, I think. So Jan.
That's flown, actually.
Yeah.
And how many people have come on the pod?
A lot. We have a lot of upcoming episodes and a lot booked in before this baby comes.
Yeah, Alex said you've got 10 more booked for this month.
Yeah, this month already. So it's wild. It's amazing. And it's so exciting because it means I can keep the podcast flowing while I take a break as well, which is awesome. So I guess it's a good chance to say thank you to everyone who has already shared their story and who has signed up to share, because it's just incredible. And there's so many different stories and journeys, and yeah, it's been incredible.
It just goes to show as well how much, there must be so many conversations that aren't being had publicly, because the fact that there's been so many people who either want to be involved or are consuming the content is such a reflection of what you saw as a gap in conversations.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just so nice to actually give people a platform to be able to express their story and the journey that they're on, because again, like, a lot of people have spent years not being open about it and carrying a little bit of a shadow. So I think it's just a really important place for people to be able to come and share their story and listen to others. Like, it's just been incredible. Yeah.
And for anyone who can hear it, a nice little sign of painting.
We've got the cute, charming doggo, Jed, with us today.
Stage 5 poignant. This is my child.
It is Rosie's fur baby, who we love.
So how many weeks are you?
I'm 34 weeks at the moment.
And how are you feeling?
A lot of emotions. I'm still anxious.
Yeah.
And I would have spoken about in my early episodes feeling anxious, and I probably didn't anticipate that I would still be feeling this way so close to the end. I feel like I have had it's been a roller coaster, but I feel like the closer I get to the end, the more anxious I'm actually getting, just because I think it's a little bit like, it's terrifying that I'm so close now. And I think until the baby is here and healthy, I'll be able to take a deep breath. Yeah. That's emotionally. Physically, I am tired and always grateful, always have so much gratitude to be in this position. And I would never say otherwise. But honestly, being heavily pregnant with a 3-year-old is a lot. And the body this time around just, isn't functioning as well as it was 3+ years ago, getting older. And I don't remember feeling like this, kind of depleted. At this point, I could have. I might just not remember. But yeah, still trying to push through. 1 more week left of work, which I'm excited about. But even just little things like sitting down for long periods, I get really bad rib pain. And I've got a really big bubba. His stomach is on the 96th percentile, which it's really wild. And I don't know whether this is like a wild coincidence or it's just the way that I manufacture children. But Ollie's stomach was also exactly the same. Like, the reason which we'll probably talk about later in this episode, but the reason I was induced is because Ollie had a really big stomach and like something similar, like 96th percentile. And this baby's exactly the same. So I thought that there was just something that would be like baby to baby. Maybe it is. And this is just like, I don't know. But I feel so much more relaxed about it this time. I think when I was in the public system, they instilled a lot of fear in me around this big belly and what it meant for birth and all these kinds of things. So the second time around, I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
Big chubby baby in there. And I think overall 90th percentile. So there's not much room.
Yeah, you've got quite a lean frame.
Yeah. So I'm not really built to carry 96 percentile babies, but that's okay.
Yeah. Oh, you still look absolutely amazing.
Oh,
I am always in awe of how incredible you always look.
I don't feel it, but thank you.
Maybe it's just the blue. It's the pop of blue you're wearing too. And say, yeah.
To your hair.
In terms of, you're saying you're feeling anxious, you had a pretty challenging first birth. Are you feeling more anxious around like getting your baby out safely and healthily, or are you feeling anxiety around like the birth experience as well, or maybe both?
I think it is mixed emotions. I think I'm terrified even now that in between now and giving birth, something will happen to the baby and he won't make it here, which I know it is like not rational, but it's so hard to not have those thoughts. And then also I think weighing in is throughout my entire pregnancy, I've always said, because with Ollie's birth, it ended up in an emergency C-section. And I've always said, if I can, I will try for a VBAC. Mm-hmm. And I think the closer that gets, the anxiety around that as well is a lot. But I've kind of put some things in place, which we'll talk about, to kind of ease that anxiety and, just have a plan to know like a certain date that I'm going to get to, and I'm not going to push it too far. And I think this time around, I won't be resistant to like medical interventions. And, if I need to have a C-section, like I will take that. I'll take it straight away instead of push out the huge labor sort of thing. Yeah. I'm more relaxed in that sense, but I'm sure it's weighing in like because it was a challenging birth, especially because this baby is pretty much the same genetically. It's a big film. Yeah, big baby. So, yeah. And I think it's hard, and I don't know whether anyone else who's been through a similar situation, I found it really hard to grapple with accepting that if I make that decision that I'm never going to have a vaginal birth. And I guess for some people it doesn't matter and it shouldn't matter. But I think I've always held on to this like image in my mind of the way that it was going to be. And that didn't happen with Ollie. And then when they kind of dangled that fruit of, you can try for a VBAC, I was like, yes, sweet. But the closer I get to the end of my birth, I'm like, is that right for me mentally? Like, why am I trying to push myself to do something a certain way? Do I have to? No. Like, does it matter how this baby comes into the world? No. Can it be beautiful and healing? Yes. But it's really hard to like actually accept that.
Did you feel that same like amount of anxiety in your first pregnancy, or were you more like naive?
Much more naive. And I think I was very fortunate with like I still had, I guess, your stock standard anxieties of being pregnant and something could happen, but definitely not to this extent, going through the journey that we were on. Like it's taken so long to get here. And it'll be like 2.5 years or something, like the journey we've been on. And I think that's really terrifying as well. And we had so much bad news for so long, and it's kind of even hard to just like lean into things are going to be okay. Like this is finally happening for us. I've just really struggled to lean into that and struggled to just like, I thought with every milestone it would get easier. And as I said, like there has been bursts of joy and excitement and going to a scan and having that sense of relief, but then it kind of still creeps back in. And the closer I get now to my birth, it's really has been like overweighing the way that I'm feeling. I don't know if that's the right word to explain it. And just like, again, I don't know if people can relate to this late in pregnancy, trying to monitor like your baby movements. And if you don't know whether they've moved like much that day, that it can be also consuming, sitting at work, trying to see if your baby's moving, and just things like that are quite challenging. Yeah.
Has anyone else kind of spoken to you about that experience?
Yeah, I've definitely had friends that have felt the same. And obviously I'm so open online about sharing the way that I'm feeling and certain things that have happened. And I've been open throughout my pregnancy, and even just people commenting saying how challenging it is for them as well. And I think it's quite common to get pretty like consumed by your baby movements, even I think if you haven't had any kind of challenges with conception. So yeah, I think it's just the anxiety of IVF, pregnancy loss, all of those things just kind of has carried through this pregnancy. And I don't think, as I said, I'll be able to take like a really big deep breath until he's here and he's okay.
Well, I just keep imagining him here already. I'm like, oh yeah, like surprise is not already out already. So I can be the positive vibe. Weird, but
yeah. And I've definitely like I've worked really hard on, as I said, I still have birth, like positive moments, and I've worked really hard to try and be able to lean in. But I still, even just little things like when Ollie talks about his little brother, like baby brother, that gives me anxiety because I'm like, I think to myself, how would I possibly explain to him if something happened? You know, like really irrational thoughts sometimes. And I'm trying to even just like lean in with him and talk about it more, but I've been so reserved even with that. Like obviously he knows he's coming, but I haven't really leaned into that like excitement with him because I've just been so guarded for him because I'm scared like of how that would affect him as well. And again, I'm not saying any of this is rational, but it's just been things that I've had to work through. And I see a psychologist regularly, so that helps a lot.
I mean, yeah, in a way it's not rational, but it sounds really reasonable, I would say. Like all of what you're saying makes sense as to why you would have those fears. Yeah. Are you doing anything nice for yourself, or like what are you doing to help balance out kind of it?
I think a huge part of my journey has been continuing exercise, which is just who I am anyway as a person, but moving my body always makes me feel better. As I said, I speak to a psychologist regularly, and like she's amazing. She's given me so many tools to help me in those moments. I've kept busy, which is probably not the best thing to do. I've got about 1 million jobs, and yeah, like little things like going and getting a massage or, you know, a bit of self-care, taking some time on my own. And Nick's super supportive of that if I just needed a bit of a break. And I've got all these things planned for my mat leave. So if I don't, praying I get to all my beauty appointments, because I'd be quite upset if I don't.
And like the funny, obviously all that stuff we do, you know, we fake tan, we laser, we retinol, like none of it matters, but it does matter whatever your beauty routine or self-care routine or ways that you treat yourself and look after yourself. Like that stuff is important if that's what you're used to. And then if all of a sudden you can't do all those things, that does take a toll on people's mental health as much as we say like it shouldn't.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. And I think like because I was already going through all of the fertility stuff, I'd already kind of gone through that identity crisis to an extent of having to like give up so many things and change my whole lifestyle. So coming into this pregnancy, I was kind of already used to it, but I found this transition so easy. And I think I was kind of used to it. I'd already given up a lot of those things. But yeah, I miss some of my beauty routines, which I will be excited to take back up once this baby's out.
And obviously worth the trade-off to have the baby.
Exactly, yeah.
Blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
However.
Yes, 100%. However, it will be packed in my suitcase.
Yes.
The hospital.
The TikTok you did was so funny where you were like, it was like a skit and you were baking champagne and retinol into your, what do you call it?
Yeah, hospital bag.
Yeah.
Suitcase, yeah.
So aside from those two things, what else have you got? Like what else are you doing to prepare for the birth?
It just really depends. I have booked a date for a planned C-section, but if I go into birth prior to that, I've said that I'll give a VBAC a crack. And I think with Ollie's birth as well, I put so much pressure on myself in birth preparation. Like I couldn't have been more prepared. I had the affirmation cards. I had like the ball I was bouncing on. I was doing every wives' tale under the sun. When I say every wives' tale, I was even like, one of the midwives told me once I had an induction date to like do stairs. And I remember I was like down at Eastern Beach, like 38 weeks pregnant, doing the Eastern Beach stairs, like psycho stuff.
Very on the brain.
Yeah, exactly. I know. So this time around, I'm kind of like, in terms of birth preparation, my preparation is not having a plan, because I think when I had a plan, it all went to shit. So this time I'm just like, I will do little things. And obviously in my suitcase, I've packed all the baby stuff and, you know, stuff for me after birth. But yeah, I'm not being really like narrow-minded about everything that I'm doing and the way that things are going to go, because I know after my last experience that anything can happen and it doesn't matter what you do beforehand.
I'd love to do a poll actually for second or third or fourth time mothers, like how much stuff you planned for the second one versus the first one.
Yeah, I remember after we had Ollie, like because I was in the public system then, and someone came in, it was their fourth baby. She wheeled in and I reckon she went home in like an hour, and Nick and I were like, and they were like, oh, do you want to do like the hearing test? I was like, nah, and just let her move in. Nick and I were like, it doesn't matter, fourth one, in and out. So definitely have a different mentality this time around. And as I said, with Ollie's birth, I labored for like 4 days, whereas this time around, if they offered, if things aren't going a certain way, I'm not going to put myself through what I went through last time. I'm just going to listen to the medical advice.
So, yeah, kind of going back to Ollie's birth, which I don't know if you've ever really talked about on the pod.
No, I don't think I've spoken. I've touched on it in a few of my TikToks, but I've never told like the full story. So, as I said, Ollie was measuring quite big, but not like crazy big, but his stomach. I think I went for like a 32, had a very straightforward pregnancy, went for like a 32-week growth scan, and his belly was really big. So then, like, all right, come back at 36 weeks and we'll do the scan again. Stomach was still measuring like big, 98th percentile or something, but compared to the rest of him, wasn't that big. And I was in the public system and I had my own private midwife the whole way through. So I had actually quite a nice experience, probably up until that point. I wouldn't say I didn't have a nice experience, but then that's when I had to go meet with like the OBs at the hospital because I'd had these scan results. And I sat down and at that point I was just like, all I had pictured for myself was this vaginal hypno birthing situation. So they were like, with affirmation cards, and like they make it look so beautiful in the videos and the birth class. But anyway, so we went in for that appointment, and I remember the OB was like, look, if you want to have a vaginal birth, your best bet is to be induced by like 39 weeks. And I was like, okay, like I hadn't really done much research on induction, and I feel like I knew some things, but I was just kind of like, yeah, okay, well, that's what I really want. So like, I'll listen to you and we'll take that. So then in the lead up from knowing that for about 36 or 37 weeks, I was just, as I said, doing every wive tale under the sun to try and go into labor naturally. And I think that in itself was already like stressing, causing stress. And then I went in it was a Sunday, and they put like a balloon in for an induction. And when they went to put it in, it was so uncomfortable because that really should have been the first alarm bell that like my body was not even close to going into labor. Like that took them, I remember it being like painful, and then putting it in and like having to, I don't really know what the process is, but I just remember it was like that to get a second nurse to like get it in. And I came home because with induction, you're supposed to get the balloon in, go home, sleep in your own bed, and then come in the morning, they break your waters, you go into labor. So I came home that night and I was in so much discomfort. I ended up going back to the hospital, and they like let some of the water out that's in the balloon just to make me more comfortable. I came home. We woke up the next morning, had all our stuff excited, thinking like, we're going to go into labor. Went into the birthing suites, and then they like checked me, and like my cervix wasn't ready. They couldn't break my waters basically. So then I remember a doctor coming in and saying, here's your options. You can go and have a cesarean. And I was thinking, like, why would you offer me that? There's so many options before that. I think we can put the balloon back in, or you can get like a cream. So I think we opted for, at that point, we put the balloon back in, and I went up to the ward. So this is the Monday, and then I started contracting and things were moving. So like, right, we'll move you back to the birth suites. I must have taken the balloon out. Still haven't broken my waters or anything. And that night I'd say I was in pre-labor. Like I was still having regular contractions, and I was awake all night, but it wasn't like intense labor. That happened all night. And in the morning, I think they came and checked me. They're like, your body's still not like, you're not even, nothing's really happening. So then I think they put like that, there's this certain cream they put in that can help your body go into labor. So then I stayed in hospital. So it was the Monday night, and then I actually stayed up on the ward on the Tuesday night. But I'm still having contractions this whole time. It's not like I'm still in pain, but it's not really bad pain. It's kind of like constant. And I remember staying on the ward in the public system. You're in a room shared with people. Like Nick can't stay with me, so he's gone home for the night. And then the Wednesday morning, I woke up, went down to the birth suites, and my body was finally ready. So by this point, I am exhausted. Like I've hardly slept. I've been contracting the whole time. And they finally break my waters.
And 48 hours later.
Well, yeah, essentially like from the Sunday night through to the Wednesday. And then they break my waters, and things just literally go from 0 to 100. Like at 1 minute, I'm just like bouncing on the ball, like calm music, affirmations. Next minute, I'm no joke, I'm crawling around the floor, screaming, like, help me to Nick, and like in so much pain because what we knew after was Ollie was posterior, so it wasn't the right way around. So I had no break. Like I was having, I reckon, like 4 or 5 contractions in 10 minutes, but in between the contractions, there was no like reprieve because he was posterior. I just had this intense back pain.
Did they know? Like,
They suspected it, like they could feel and suspect it, but they never like, that's the thing. Through all this before my induction, like there was never any scans. They never kind of investigated these things. And I actually found I got a hold of my Bowen Health notes, and at a check that I had like prior to that, there was a posterior question mark, but no one ever gave me that information. So like it could have definitely changed. Like if I had have known that when they offered me that cesarean, like if I had have known he was posterior and things probably weren't going to go very well, I might have taken it. Like anyway, I labored for a couple of hours and I just couldn't handle it. So as soon as they broke my waters, I was like instantly dilated 5 centimeters. So it did go from 0 to 100, but then it just stopped there. And it was like the contractions were coming, but I just wasn't going because Ollie at that point was like stuck basically. We didn't really know. So anyway, I was like, give me the epidural, got the epidural, and like things were calm because I didn't actually have the drip that they usually put you on to be induced, because as soon as they broke my waters, my body went in naturally. I think it's because of all the intervention I'd had. But as soon as I had the epidural, they had to give me that drip of Syntonin, and then Ollie wasn't coping with that. So then they had to, at one point, they did that and the contractions were going, but he still just, it was almost just like trying, but he wasn't getting anywhere. And then at one point, I remember all these doctors came in because his heart rate, like he was not coping with the medication, the drip, and they were like moving me, and like all of a sudden it was like bright lights and all these people coming in, and they gave me an injection to stop it. And then they basically said, like, these are your options. You can keep trying, but your baby's not doing well. So then we ended up going for an emergency Caesar. And I think because I hadn't prepared myself well for that, and going into the C-section, I was so kind of frazzled and shocked and just not ready for it. I really found that experience really tough. And I didn't have that, like, you know, people talk about that, like as soon as you see your baby, you're just like, euphoria. I was just terrified. I was like, get me out of this room. Like, amazing that he's here, and I'm so glad he's here and safe, but get me out of here. Like, it was, for me, a really scary experience. And I think as well, it just comes down to, again, not being that well prepared for it, and the days leading into that and the shock of it all. And I found the days, like, Ollie was born in the afternoon and I was so frazzled and shocked. And then Nick pretty much had to go home as soon as we got to the ward because it was in the public system. So I'm there alone with a newborn. I can't get out of bed because I've had like the spinal block, and it takes like till the next day so you can move again. You can't get up to get your baby. And I remember Ollie choking at one point, and I'm pressing the button and just bawling my eyes out. I just remember it just being awful as a first-time mum, hadn't gone through all of that, like no sleep. It just, was a lot.
I'm so naive to it because I haven't been through that experience. But one of our girlfriends was saying how her husband had to leave overnight, and the system is the system or whatever. But that like shocked me. I had no idea that happened, and that I'd always been like, why would someone pay to go private and when you could just go through, like, you know, naivety. But I can understand now why people opt for it, because if you have to send your partner home, and that's probably the one person that can like calm you down and care for you the most out of anyone, you haven't got that. That would have just been so scary.
Yeah, it was really hard. And I think that's the thing, like, and I would have said the same thing. Like, if you have a straightforward birth, like from a medical perspective, you cannot fault the system, but there's just gaps. And then going through something like that, and then your partner having to go home like straight away when you're still just even dealing with it, and you've got this new baby next to you, and you just like, what just happened? I just remember bawling my eyes out when Nick left. Like, I was just like, what do I do? And because it was a busy ward too, like there's other mums that they've got to tend to, they can't come to you straight away. And it's just like, I just even found that those 2 nights, even the second night when I could move around, it was still so hard to get up. And like Ollie, I needing to change Ollie in the middle of the night, and him doing that. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but their first poo's like this huge, big black, like it's disgusting. But having to deal with that, I remember he weed all over me, and I was just like crying because I was like, I just don't, I've just had surgery. It was just so much. So hence why we are going privately this time. But also, another reason for me having private care is just because of the anxiety that I felt and needing that extra support, because there's just so many extra scans and checks that they do that I think that like this time around, if I was to go into labor naturally, like I think I would even already know the position of the baby and those kinds of things.
Yeah. And when you go through IVF, does that automatically enter you into a private or public system? Or
I think you automatically become high risk when you go through IVF. I think that's just the category they put you in. So I don't know whether going through the public system this time around, my experience might have been different and I might have had more care, because Ollie's pregnancy was quite straightforward. I was kind of just one of those low risk pregnancies that I didn't really have much to do with the hospital at all throughout the whole pregnancy until the end.
so like a lot of the listeners of this podcast are probably people that have either struggled to get pregnant or are still trying to get pregnant or have had like pregnancy loss or trauma. Is there any advice? I'm sure there is. What advice do you have for people going through maybe to start like their first pregnancy? What are some of the things that you wish that you knew having gone in through that experience that you think people can do? Because people always say like do your own research, make sure you're prepared, but what does that even mean?
Yeah, I think it is really important to be very well prepared and be really prepared that anything can happen at any point of your pregnancy. Doesn't mean that it will, but just really educate yourself on like everything that could possibly happen with
Like
birth.
scenario,
Different scenarios. And I think, honestly, speaking to so many friends that have had babies, the ones that have actually gone in without a plan have had the best birth. So like best birth, every birth is different, but they've had quite a straightforward birth, but they haven't been like hell bent on a certain thing. And I think what was really detrimental to me was being so hell bent on this like idea and plan in my head of this perfect hypnobirthing birth that I was so narrow-minded that I wasn't looking outside that, and I just thought that would happen. And I think that was half the reason that I struggled so much after my birth, because it didn't go that way and I wasn't mentally prepared for that, and then mentally prepared for all of like, they talk about the cascade of interventions, and that's literally what happened to me with being induced. And I think, and I always say this, unless it was for a really important medical reason and my baby was at risk or I was at risk, I wouldn't let them induce me, because now even speaking to my like OB that I have, like they have no concerns. So I always think that if I wasn't induced, would he have turned and not been posterior? Would my body have been ready? Would things have been different? So I guess just
like it's 39 weeks, did you say?
Yeah,
39, another couple of weeks potentially.
I could have gone, and I think that I probably would have gone over, but that's quite normal for your first birth as well. So I guess just, yeah, Australia Birth Stories is an amazing podcast to listen to, and you hear so many different births on that. So I highly recommend listening to that potty. But yeah, just trying to educate yourself as much as possible. And if you get advice, there's no harm in getting a second opinion or doing some research before you make a choice, I think.
I think that applies to like everything in life, right? But I've noticed lately there's been a few things that, you know, we've been doing, and it's almost like women don't want to be difficult, so they don't ask follow-up questions. And I think it's been quite interesting for me personally lately with some other stuff where I'm like, I actually am totally entitled to ask multiple questions and call again and follow up and ask why and how and who and all that stuff. And I think I've been reflecting on this in my own life lately around don't be a difficult woman, don't ask too many questions, do what you're told. But I think that is really harmful and really detrimental sometimes too.
Yeah, for sure.
People's health and well-being.
Yeah, 100%. And I think when you're in a vulnerable position like pregnancy, especially your first pregnancy, you're going to listen to the health experts and just be like, even if you think that something's not quite right, you might just say like, oh, yes to it. And even like in hospital, I should have asked more questions. Even speaking to my OB now, they say they shouldn't have let it get as far as it did with me. And I even had some really awful experiences, and I don't really like saying it, but with some male doctors in there that were really rough with me, like, because on top of everything that I went through, I was getting constant checks. They were doing sweep and stretches. I remember one time a male doctor got in and was really rough, made me bleed. I was bawling. Nick was crying, seeing me go through that, even having to have the oxygen when they're doing checks. There was nothing gentle about the things that they were doing. I should have been questioning that more and being more empowered to say, no, I don't want this, but I just went with everything. So yeah, just empower yourself if you can to ask questions before having to say yes to something and asking, like, is my baby at risk here? Like, do I actually have to make this decision?
Yeah, yeah. Do you think they were honoring what you wanted though, which was like, do you think the medical system thought it was better to do a C-section, but you had said you really wanted to do a vaginal birth, or no?
Potentially. Yeah, maybe. Like, and I guess they did give me the options there of a C-section, but I kind of wish that I had more information about like the way things were going to go at that point, I think. But maybe as well, I didn't ask those questions because I was like, why would I take that? I want a vaginal birth. So yeah, in a sense, yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So then you're going into this next birth, like,
What?
so like, have you had any conversations with like Nico around what you need from him this time around versus the first time?
No, like I have spoken to him about not having a plan this time around. And he's very much like he would, in a perfect world, he would love me to just say, let's have a planned C-section no matter what, because he had to live through being the support person. And I think that's something that probably isn't spoken about enough. It's like you're experiencing this, but someone's watching you experience. And it was traumatic for him as well to go through. So in his perfect world, we would just go in for the C-section. So I have had some conversations with him about, I guess, the birth and not having a plan, but we haven't had any. No, I haven't. And I need to probably tell him exactly what I'll need from him. But I think he already kind of knows to an extent, like he is always the calm, the voice of reason for me. So I think I will just say to him, like, just remind me of the rational things that I have said prior to this, especially around, like I've already said that I'm not going to try and push myself the way that I did last time. Like I just don't see a need to. And after everything we've gone through to get to this point, and which is something I had a conversation with my psychologist about, I'm like, I'm not sure what I'm trying to prove here, why I feel like I need to do this. So yeah.
And you said earlier that if you have a C-section this time around, this will be the last. That means you won't ever have a.
No.
So is that because you're not like you've already decided you're not going to try for another child?
I don't know about, which is a whole nother conversation because we've got 7 embryos sitting on ice. So that's a whole nother thing. Let's just get this baby to the world.
People like, Rosie, please. It's like when you get married and the day after, people are like, so when are you having babies? I'm doing it even before the next one comes out.
Oh yeah, and I had conversations with people that people are just, it's, even in the IVF world, you get that. It's like, what are you going to do with the embryos? Are you happy? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, this baby isn't even here yet. Like, give us a hot minute. But yeah.
I guess like the reason I asked that though is because obviously you had always wanted like a family, and then you'd gone through this massive process, and then you, as we've spoken about extensively on the pod, but I wondered if you had felt like everything you'd gone through, you didn't want to go through that again, so you'd already made that decision, or whether it was like it's worth it now that you're here.
It's so funny that you asked that, because I was always, prior to getting pregnant the second time around, I was always like 2 babies. That's, was my goal. And Nick always wanted 3, and we're kind of like, we'll see what happens. But I was always like, 2's enough. But then after everything we've gone through, now I have this thing of like, I want 3, which is wild. It's so wild, but it's almost, and I don't know whether I'll change my mind. Like, this baby's here, and I don't know whether it's just because like it was such a hard process to get here. I don't know why my mind's changed now and I feel this way, but I do. And maybe it is because we've got 7 embryos sitting there, and if one of those wasn't a 3rd baby, then it isn't meant to be. So I don't know, but we'll just have to wait and see. But it's weird how it's kind of on the other way for me.
Yeah.
I guess in a sense, like if we went again now, we would just go straight to IVF. We wouldn't go through everything that we went through as well. There's still nothing easy about IVF, but I think when you already kind of have completed that process and you going straight into it, you're not like, it's like all the stuff a lot of the time that you go through prior to even getting to that point. That's a lot.
I would say mentally for you, yes. That's what we talked about.
Yes.
It's like mentally going through IVF as 3rd pregnancy surely would be easier for you than going.
Yes, 100%. And I think as well, because this baby would be here, I wouldn't have so much stress around it either. I'd probably just be like, well, if this works, it works. Doesn't it? Does it? Yeah. No, but yeah, we'll wait and see. Watch this.
Is there anything else you wanted to speak through today, or are you feeling pretty good?
No, that's it. I just want to say that if there's anyone else in this position that they might have just found out they're pregnant, or they're pregnant after having a loss or a really long journey to conceive their baby or their rainbow baby. Like, just take it week by week and hang in there, because there's honestly nothing that anyone can say, and it's not easy, and there can be some really challenging moments, and there can be a lot of anxiety that comes with it. But just really know that there's nothing wrong with the way that you're feeling, and you don't have to feel all these sparks of joy. Like, it's okay to be terrified, and it's okay to not have that perfect pregnancy that you've always dreamed of, but just take it day by day and just look after yourself, be kind to yourself, and let yourself feel what you're feeling. Yeah.
And every time I listen to this pod or chat to you, I like learn new things about what people would be going through. And I hadn't thought about the fact that you would be this far down your journey and still feeling anxious around whether your baby's going to, come exactly the way that they should come. And so I think lots of love to you, and lots of love to everyone who else is going through that, because
Exactly. Yeah.
we didn't really ever think about that.
And like, it's so okay to feel whatever you're feeling. Just feel it and move through, and lean on any kind of support that you need to get through it, and, kind of sort of block out that noise around you of like the way that things should always be sometimes, of just, you do you, and everything will be okay. You'll make it.
What's the plan for the space between two lines while you're on mat leave? So you said you're filming or recording a bunch.
Yeah, so I've got so many stories already recorded, but recording as much as I can this month, and I'll take a break probably for June and July, and then hopefully be able to pick up in August. Obviously not to the capacity that I'm doing now, but yeah, we'll be able to start recording again. So the podcast won't stop. It will keep going the whole time through. And yeah, so I guess, I might have a baby by the time this episode comes out, but if you have submitted a form and you haven't heard from me yet, it would just be because I'm taking a break, and you will hear from me. So I will be back.
The gal is doing her best.
Yes, I'll be back. And it'll be really nice to, now that I actually will be on maternity leave from my 9 to 5, it'll be nice to really put some more work into the podcast and try and build it up and like continue this journey, because it's just been amazing how much it's impacting other people. And I'm just so glad I've been able to put it out into the world. And I think it's weird how things happen sometimes, but if I didn't go through what I went through, like, this wouldn't be a thing. And it's, sometimes you feel like when you find just your place and what you should be doing, that's what it feels like for me right now. So yeah. This has been The Space Between Two Lines. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and register on our website to share your story. The link is in the bio. Until next time.